from Galilee. A love story by Marjorie Holmes.
We continue today in the edited version of the book Two from Galilee at the end of chapter 13. Mary has returned from Elizabeth's house. Joseph has seen her, and he's now coming to pick her up to take her to his house to be his bride, finally, after all these many months. Mary's parents are not real excited about it, but they're willing to accept it since no one else would have taken Mary in the condition she's in. Of course, that condition, Mary pregnant with the birth of the Christ child. And today we're going to find out not only how they make their home together, but the complications that ensue when there's a royal decree on this episode of Two from Galilee. Joseph's house is nearly finished, Mary told her parents. It lacks only a portion of the roof. We'll sleep there this night, and we'll go into his house together, not with bowed heads, Mother, but proudly, knowing how great a thing has befallen us from the Lord, both of us. For no matter what people are saying, they're wrong. This child that I carry is the child of no man, but as I told you in the beginning, the child of him who created us all, the child who's destined to be our deliverer. In the silence, they could hear the children still arguing outside, the shrill whine of their tops. Salome had begun the churning for dinner. There was the slosh of the coming butter in the skins. Esau passed by the window, leading the goats to the rain-filled trough. A rich scent of animal and earth came into the room, and it was all so homely and dear and familiar. How could she expect them to understand? How could she leave them, even for Joseph? Yet he was coming, her dearest, her chosen one, who was also, even as she, chosen by God for this moment. A great excitement of love and pain and wonder flamed up within her. Her father asked her, "What did your aunt have to say of all this?" "Elizabeth knew, Father, for she cried out at the sight of me that my womb was to be blessed, and at that moment her own child leapt within her, the child that's likewise destined to be a great and holy man." Elizabeth. Hannah blanched. Her own sister, then, who was older and wiser and intimate with godly things, she accepted this. A part of her scoffed. A part of her fell prostrate, almost in terror, wondering, could it be? Could it possibly be? "I wish otherwise," she said. "I wish that God had chosen someone else." "Then you believe?" Mary said. "Mother, you do believe?" "Would that I could believe." Hannah sat on the floor beside the chest, plucking fiercely away at the chaff, how it clung to her. "Would that I dared believe, Mary." "Father, you didn't question this when I first told you." "No," he said. "It was somehow easier then, before I had time to think about it, to question and to reason." "To listen to me, too," Hannah said. "Yes, and to reason and to listen to reason. And yet, now that I've seen you, yes, Mary, it is easier for me to believe this marvel than to believe that you've sinned. Oh, thank you, Father, thank you. If even one of you ceases to doubt, then my heart will be at rest." Jealousy wrenched Hannah again, that old alliance shutting her out. Now this mystery. She could only grope blindly along its edges like Esau. What was it? What was it? Would the door never be open to her, the light come streaming through? No, she shrank back from it, her whole practical nature thrusting it away. She could feel Mary's large, beseeching eyes. "Oh, Mother, I beg you to try for your own soul's peace. Please believe." I don't know, Hannah said. "I only know that I am wretched and afraid." She sprang up, began to give cryptic orders for the packing of the baskets, for she heard the commotion in the yard. Joseph had arrived. He had put off all semblance of mourning. She was shocked. He wore his best raiment of many stripes with a scarlet collar at his throat and a girdle to match. He was dressed as a bridegroom. Together he and Joachim loaded the donkey that he had brought. They worked busily, passing few words. There was something touching about their earnest endeavors with Joseph so dressed. The women, too, worked in haste and silence, a tension between them. "Are you sure you won't come down later, Mother, to eat a celebration meal with us, please?" Mary asked. "It's too late. I've already ordered Salome to start the preparations for our own dinner." "Then, goodbye, Mother, though I'll see you often." Yes, it doesn't matter. We'll see each other often." Hannah turned her dry cheek for Mary's kiss. She watched them set off together, the tall youth in his gallant garb, her daughter beside him, walking heavily with her burden, yet her face that was upturned toward his. Hannah clutched at her aching throat. She spoke sharply to the children as she plunged back into the housework. Chapter 15. Close as she felt to Timnah, Joseph's mother, as Mary's hour drew nearer, she could find herself wanting her own mother. More and more often she climbed the hillside to be with Hannah for a while. "So you've come," Hannah would say flatly, belying the pleasure in her eyes. "Here, knead the dough and set it near the oven to rise. After that I've some flax for you to dye." It was good to be near Hannah in the old way, being ordered about. It was curiously like being a little girl again. One day when they were at the dyeing in the yard, she asked, "Mother, when my time comes, you will serve me as midwife, won't you?" Hannah turned from the steaming kettle, stick in hand, her face flushed almost as crimson as the stuff bubbling in the pot. "Do you really want me? What about Timnah?" "She isn't the midwife you are, and I wouldn't feel safe with anyone else." Hannah began stabbing and stirring the yarn in the vessel. "Oh, all right, if that's the way you feel." She wiped her hands on the tucked-up skirt of her tunic. And I do hope it will go easy with you, my child." "I'm not afraid," said Mary. "God will be with me." "He'd better be," said Hannah. "Oh, Mother, must you always speak so?" "I'm sorry, I have no gift for words like you. I mean only that since this is his doing, if indeed it is the miracle you believe, why then you'll have no need of a crude servant like me, will you?" "I don't know. There's still so much that I don't understand. As you say, another miracle may happen to bring this divine child forth from me. Yet I must be prepared, since I just don't know." There was a look of patient bewilderment on Mary's face. "It's the not knowing that's hard, Mother. It's that, only that, of which I confess that I'm afraid." They were closer after that, the two of them. The air between them was heightened and sweetened by this coming event which now concerned them both. Thus, when Joseph came up one night to join them for the meal on Sabbath Eve, they were astounded at his news. Word of a decree from Caesar had reached Nazareth only a few hours before. Hearing it angrily discussed at the shop, he'd flung his tools down and gone out to read the proclamation for himself where it was displayed on the notice board. "New taxes are going to be levied throughout the entire Roman world," he told them, "and to make sure nobody fails to pay up, they're going to take a new census. They've ordered every adult male citizen to proceed at once to the place of his birth to be registered and counted." "For me, that means Bethlehem," said Joseph. Bethlehem? The family stared at him where he stood, his flushed, perspiring face in his hands. They needed no explanation. His parents had lived there when he was born. His birthplace was the one thing Joseph had in common with Hannah. "But you can't go," said Salome. "You can't leave Mary." "He's got no choice," said Joachim. Joachim moved to the corner where the sacred scrolls and instruments of ceremony were kept. The house was fragrant with the foods that the women had been preparing all day. It was to have been a happy evening. "None of us have a choice," said Joachim. He was scowling. "To defy those accursed swine would mean being thrown into prison, as if our taxes weren't enough to break our backs. Now they must count us like beasts of the field." "Father, no," pleaded Esau. "It's not good to feel such hatred, not on the Sabbath Eve." Even as he spoke, 2 final blasts from the trumpets came thrilling through the night, signaling the time for the women to light their Sabbath lamps. A hush fell, and Esau knew that his mother was lighting theirs. He could smell the oil, feel its warm glow. He knew that all over the village other lamps had begun to sparkle, the Sabbath to shine. Mary had described it for him many times. It was like the starry skies, and he knew that bitterness and anger were clouds condemning all to a darkness worse than his. No, the Sabbath eve should always be radiant when his sister had come home. In thy light shall we see light, he could hear his father praying. The sweet-smelling wine was poured. There was the cool taste of it and the tinkling of the cups, and they strove to be at peace, reciting the sacred words together. But anxiety was upon them, and afterward, instead of discussing the scriptures or the singing of the psalms or telling stories, they could speak of nothing but this latest insult with its terrible complications. I have to prepare for the trip as soon as the Sabbath is over, Joseph said to Joachim. I should leave early in the week. Fortunately, my brothers can register here and look after the shop. He gazed wretchedly at Mary, who was helping Hannah clear the table, the only work they might do and not break the rules of rest for the Sabbath. As for Mary, my mother will look after her while I'm gone. Hannah turned swiftly from the cupboard. We'll look after her, she said. And for a moment she could not conceal her exultation. Yes, we can do it. To have him out of the way at such a time, to bring a child into the world with her own hands, to be the first to know it and to love it, and for Joachim to be the first male to consecrate it by holding it upon his knees. Amazingly, it all seemed arranged for Hannah's benefit, a late but undeniable squaring of accounts. But Mary had shaken the last crumbs from the cloth and crossed the room to stand by Joseph's side. I want to go with you, she said. Mary, you can't. My beloved, you can't. He's right. Hannah sprang at them. It's unthinkable. The mountains are treacherous in the winter, and the nights are freezing. You might lose the child. Mother, I cannot lose the child. And what if your time comes upon you when you're in the wilderness among the jackals, or somewhere along the road? Hannah was in a frenzy. She accosted her husband, who was regarding his daughter with a strange, fixed expression. You tell her, Joachim. Tell her she must not do this foolish thing. We will take shelter, Mary said. We'll be safe. Joseph gripped Mary's hands. Mary, you'd better listen to your mother. Joachim, speak to her, Hannah beseeched him. He must support her. Surely he would not yield to Mary when so important an issue was at stake. You're her father. Please, she'll listen to you. Joachim ran a big, trembling hand across his grizzled jaw. Slowly, he shook his head. She must do what she must do, he said. I must go with my husband, said Mary. I must journey with him to Bethlehem. So Joachim gives his daughter permission to go on the trip to Bethlehem, and the main reason is because Joachim believes. He knows the scriptures, and he knows that the child Jesus is to be born in Bethlehem. And on our next reading, we'll hear about their journey as we continue in our edited version of Marjorie Holmes' book, Two from Galilee.